Hello and welcome to the June edition of Community Connect. And this month's my guest is Mike Boerboom. Mike Boerboom is part of a local family agriculture operation called Boerboom Ag Resources. And thanks for being my guest today, Mike.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So as always, I want to kind of do a recap of the previous month. May was not as busy as we'd like to see it, but oddly enough, we had 3 events scheduled, and we had like 5 events that kind of happened impromptu, which is fine because it's all good value for our members. So let's talk about some of those events. Back in early May, we had Marshall Police Detective Ryan Hoffman, who spoke on some of the frauds and scams. And I wanted to bring in Ryan because it takes something like the pandemic that we're dealing with for those scammers really to dig in their heels into the general public. So he came in and talked about the frauds and scams that to look out for. A few weeks ago, we had one of our members, Chelsea, who came in and talked about social media and how to use social media during this time. And because, not just our Facebook and some of these traditional ones, but maybe like LinkedIn if you're looking for helpers, or is Instagram the social media platform that you use. So we wanted to really figure out some of those best practices of social media. Mike, I know you guys you use social media. I think you guys are just on Facebook, and you guys had that really cool BBC video here recently.
So we do use social media to kind of share with the general public what's all going on our farm on a day-to-day basis. And with COVID-19 and the pandemic taking place, we've actually probably used social media a little bit to sell some pigs in some non-traditional markets that we've never used before, and we've connected with some people that we've never connected with before.
Right.
So it offered some great opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Last week we had somebody come in to talk about how to network virtually. Of course, everybody is so accustomed to Zoom, and people I'm hearing are just kind of zoomed out. But so what are some of those best practices when it comes to networking virtually? The same day, we had Nick Doling and Ryan Landberg, who are both with Big Stone Therapies in partnership with Avera, and they had a really nice webinar on how to open your business safely. What are those CDC standards, and what is the Minnesota Department of Health shooting out? So they did a really nice job of presenting last week about how to open up safely. And finally, thanks to everybody in the Marshall community that called in for our telethon last week. So last week we raised over $50,000, and those went for gift cards to businesses throughout town. We also took donations to some of our nonprofits who sometimes get overlooked during this time, but they had to cancel a lot of their events too. So we had several different donations that came in. But we raised over $50,000. We had 4 or 5 volunteers come in. It was a fun vibe to be in, and exactly what the city of Marshall needed. It's just a really nice boost. Mm-hmm. So, but with that, let's move on to our guest. And each month, I'd like to have a guest to kind of talk about some community gatherings or whatever the case is. But during this time, I want to kind of put a focus on some of our businesses in the area and speak to them and be overlooked. And sometimes our agriculture community gets overlooked. We hear about all these other businesses in town are struggling, and absolutely they are. But Mike, I'm thankful that this didn't hit last year or the year before when it was such a wet spring.
Right. Yes.
My gosh.
Yes.
So, Mike, talk about COVID-19 and how is it impacted not just necessarily Boerboom Ag Resources, but agriculture in general.
Yeah. Thanks. So the impact of COVID-19 to agriculture has been very widespread. Early on in the pandemic, if you go back to March timeframe, agriculture and farming was kind of designated as a critical infrastructure industry. Yep. So as the state shutdown took place and as everything changed, our industries continue to operate. Our day-to-day, our work continued, and really from the standpoint of feeding pigs and making feed, nothing really changed for us. But we took special precautions, followed CDC recommendations for what all to do on farms and within our feed mill to manage employee safety. But then the other side of it, the financial side of it, the impact to the markets was huge. And in the month of March, when all the restaurants shut down, when everything shifted from a lot of people eating out and food service, everything shifted to retail. Mm-hmm. So it took a whole realignment of all the supply chains and getting everything put into packaging and put into the retail space versus it going into food service space. So that transition, it was very hard on prices, and livestock were hit especially hard, just because in a traditional sense, 40% of the pork goes into food service and 30 to 40% goes into retail. While when you take away 40% of it and it's got to move into retail, it takes a lot of shuffling of the deck. Yep. So that was definitely a lot of moving parts there, and then as time went on, and I'm sure everybody's aware, the packing plants started shutting down in the month of April. And that's what really shook everything, at least in the livestock sector, in terms of starting to back up pigs that would normally be going to market, and they're staying on farms, and really created a whole disruption in the supply chain.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, so I know it was at JBS down in Worthington, of course, the plant in Sioux Falls closed, and we hear a lot about meat shortages. Is it really meat shortages, or is it just those meat packing facilities that closed that really kind of is more of an issue than meat shortages? Right.
There's definitely not a shortage of food.
Yeah.
It's just a disruption in the supply chain.
Right.
So you have farmers that have tons of livestock and grain and produce that's available for market, but getting it to the retailers and getting it in the hands of consumer is what proved to be the real challenge.
Right.
And you mentioned the plants in Worthington, JBS, and then also Smithfield and Sioux Falls. Both those plants were shut down completely for a period of time, and just about every packing plant in the U.S. somehow was impacted operationally by COVID-19 and had to either slow down, and they've all put precautions in place following CDC guidance and spacing employees out, putting up plexiglass shields between them, and taking a lot of special precautions.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Why can't producers hold their livestock forever or find alternative markets?
Yeah, so the modern or the pork industry relies upon these plants in Worthington, in Sioux Falls to run continuously and to run 5 to 6 days a week and run at 100%. Behind that is a whole supply chain of farmers that have pigs in finishing barns, farmers that have pigs in nurseries, and then sow farms that continue to produce wean pigs or piglets baby pigs that move into those nurseries every single day. That doesn't stop because we're making decisions today that impact our marketings 10 to 11 months from now. So the pigs that are going to market today, decisions were made for those 10 to 11 months ago. Mm-hmm. So there's there's an 11-month supply chain, I'll say, of pigs lined up right now to go to market, anticipating that these plants will be running at full capacity. Well, then, so you start taking out the capacity of the plants and backing things up. The other issue is you can hold the pigs for a while, or livestock for a while, but eventually they just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and reach a weight that's no longer acceptable. The plants can't handle huge carcasses, and the consumer doesn't want to buy a pork chop that's as big as a sheet of paper.
Right.
They want it to be what they've traditionally been able to buy.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I guess to answer your alternative markets question too, right? So there are a lot of lockers and local markets that are able to take some of the supply, but when you're talking to a plant in Worthington that can harvest 20,000 head per day, and if you add up all the lockers in the state of Minnesota, it's only able to harvest like 1 to 2% of the pigs.
It doesn't add up.
It doesn't add up.
No, and
Exactly.
I know I've seen some press that you guys have done a nice job donating when you can, but there's only so much of that you can do either.
Right. We were able to we had a family from Wisconsin come all the way over, and they actually picked up 48 live hogs, brought them back to Wisconsin, and then worked with a locker there that was willing to run a weekend, and all the pork that was produced from those pigs went into Wisconsin food shelves. If we've been working with a lot of people that have wanted to butcher at home, or have been lucky and fortunate to find a locker spot, but anything to get the pigs to market and into the food chain, we're working on it and trying it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So why has this led to meat shortages? You kind of touched on it already, but why has this led to meat shortages and price increases?
Right. So it's a disconnect. way too many live animals out in the market and not enough processing to get them into pork products for the retailers. So there's not enough shackle spaces to get them into the retailers. So really the price of live hogs is at like a multi-year low. It's the lowest it's been in years. Meanwhile, the price of pork, because of the shortage, is at a multi-year high.
Right.
So it's an supply and demand, very tight supply of pork and a very high supply of live hogs. So the price did shoot up in early May when the shutdowns were at their worst, when only about 60% of the processing plants were operating in the U.S. But now as plants have started to come back online, that price has fallen back a little bit. But if you go into the local grocery store, I've never seen pork loins, as an example, at the same price that they are right now. I've never seen them that high.
Wow.
So yeah.
No good. So what are you doing? What is Boerboom Ag Resources doing differently to manage through this crisis?
Right. So a few of the things we touched on already. We've been seeking some of those alternative markets. We've sold individual pigs to individual people, I'll say, that are looking for their at-home butchering. We've also sought out some markets that we never knew existed before. Been sending pigs as far away as I think some of them ended up in Alabama. Just same thing. The people looking to butcher small lockers that were able to step up capacity and take on additional head. We've also, on the human health side of it, indicated we've followed a lot of the CDC recommendations on how to keep employees safe, because we want to make sure everybody's feeling safe when they're at work. And the biggest thing is just being nimble now that plants are back and operational. We're finding out now when we'll be able to get loads into the plants basically the day of. So get a call at 11 o'clock in the morning and say, all right, things are going well. We have room for 5 or 6 loads. And then we'll just go ahead and get those scheduled in. So it's definitely forced us to be creative and work through things and try and find as many markets as we can. So.
Right. So if you had a crystal ball, Mike, when do you envision things will turn back to somewhat normal or normal timeframes for yourself?
So I'm optimistic that hopefully by the middle of the summer, I'll say the middle of July, plants will hopefully be back up at full operation level. Part of the problem is, if we look back to what I talked about, that supply chain, is if we look back at the last 10, 11 weeks, we've missed so much marketing opportunity there, and we can never make that back up. We can get back to 100, but the plants can't run at 120 or 140% to make up for lost time. So there's definitely a huge void, and still probably the industry estimates that there's maybe 2 to 3 million pigs out there that are still backed up out in the system. So we need to get back to 100%, and if we can by the middle of summer, we'll be able to make up some ground, because they're usually hog marketings in the summer are a little bit lighter than what they are in the fall and winter. But if we're not able to do that by fall, then we could really start to see more problems. So it could be long term, but for now, it looks like we're turning in the right direction.
That's what I'm hoping to. People ask me all the time, and I was actually quoted in the newspaper this week. People have a positive outlook on this. I think things will turn around really quickly. Sometimes it's just that mental mind frame, and I sure hope that people coming this week. Of course, I see as I drive by all these restaurants, there's people out and about, so it's good to see too.
It's about time to get a haircut and be able to go eat a steak somewhere.
Oh, I hear you. I'm getting one tonight. You could almost, but it's crazy, especially on a windy day here in Marshall. It's a disaster. All right. So big picture question, Mike. How much of an economic impact does the pork industry have on the state and region?
Right. So by the numbers, in Minnesota, the industry it's a $2.7 billion industry. So huge. It's huge. And I think when you look at rural America and the reliance it has on the livestock industry and animal agriculture, it's huge. It's a $2.7 billion industry. In our business alone, we support over 100 families. We buy about 3 million bushels of corn every year locally, And when you take all the states, or excuse me, all the pigs in the state, you're talking a couple 100 million bushels of corn that's being used annually. You start looking at the feed use, because livestock is the number one customer for corn, DDGs, and then also soybean. Soybeans going into soybean meal. So without a livestock sector, the rest of ag is in big trouble.
Sure.
So when you look at and then we look at rural Minnesota or Southwest Minnesota, and its reliance upon the ag industry, there's a lot of trickle down there that without the industry it'd be huge.
Right.
It was estimated just recently by the U of M that if you took away 15% of Minnesota's livestock industry, it'd be 2,100 jobs just directly involved in the production of livestock. So that doesn't count for the feed manufacturing, the crops that go into those pigs. That's just for the livestock, for the hog industry in the production sense.
A lot of people don't realize that. That's why I'm glad you went into detail about that.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
All right, so not a fun subject to talk about, but there's a mental toll, not only on just the community in general, but you just threw out some big time numbers there in the $1 billion range.
Yep.
Mental health toll on farmers.
Right. So you brought up earlier that it's a good thing it wasn't last year or the year before from a planning perspective, because it would have just been one thing on top of another.
Right.
COVID-19, it's been hard on everybody, right? You just talked about how long your hair is.
Right.
The kids didn't get to play any spring baseball. The graduating seniors, I can't imagine what they're going through, right? I mean, when you were 18, that was the time to just grab the bull by the horns and get after it. But none of what's normal can be normal. So, by and large, taking a very big impact on everyone. But for farmers, it's especially tough when you see what you've produced and it could potentially become waste. And every day you wait, in our business, we've done some things to slow pigs down, to change their growth patterns, to be really less productive. And that's just really hard for me. Every day you wake up and you want to be better and you want to produce more with less, be more efficient. Mm-hmm. And COVID-19 has almost forced the opposite.
Right.
And it's just to grapple with that. It's hard.
Right.
And I think there'll be, definitely there's some long-term mental impacts that'll be felt. And if people need help, I encourage them to get help and call somebody and talk to somebody. I know I've talked to more people in the last 3 months than I've talked to, it seems like, in the last 3 years.
Right.
And just always, hey, how's it going? What's going on? And, just making sure everybody's doing all right.
Yeah.
So
how can the business community, the Marshall community rally around our agriculture industry right now? If you had a message for our watchers, what is that message?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is supporting the entire infrastructure.
Yeah.
Whether that's, we have a processing plant in town here, Turkey Valley, right?
Yes.
The success of Turkey Valley is success of the livestock industry in the area, albeit turkeys versus hogs. But I think the biggest thing is just support the industry in general, whether that's buying their products, supporting them in the sense that they are a big part of the community and a big part of rural Minnesota and rural America. So I think just having a positive outlook on what their impact is to the community is probably the biggest thing.
Right.
I mean, it wouldn't make me, one bit mad if you went out and bought a couple pork loins today and just, kept hoarding them away for your barbecues this summer and whatnot. So
and going out. I mean, going to our restaurants. We had Alan Deitz last week in our office talking about that whole farm to table. And, the trickle down effect of that. So it's similar, but obviously a much bigger operation. So,
right, for sure. And just getting out and buying the product and returning to normal. I think that's the other thing. Once the restaurants open back up, getting out there and supporting them, and I guess they are opening up, but in a little bit of an unusual sense at this point. But getting out there and doing what you did before. So
good.
Yeah.
Well, yes, thanks, Mike. I sure do appreciate you being here. And again, you're right from Mike. Go out. When things started opening up, the Marshall community has done an amazing job throughout this whole time. Restaurants are some are doing better than others, but the Marshall community, I see long lines going through the drive-throughs or curbside. So keep it up. That's what I would ask when it comes to.
I ordered some food from a restaurant, and they said, I hope it's all right. It's going to be at about an hour and a half. And I said, that's great. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah,
I'll be in there at 8:30, no problem.
Yeah,
so
it's a good problem to have, especially during this time. So good. All right, I'm just going to touch on a few things here for June, and then we'll get signed off here. So again, our coupon book is still out there. Coupon book, if you like what the chamber's doing for businesses in the area, that's our fundraiser. We're a nonprofit, and we encourage you to use those coupons even during this time. Our businesses are okay with you using those coupons as you go in, because they know you're going to spend above and beyond that coupon. Traveling Trivia is back this month. It's next week over at the gym. So they're going to have it actually in their outdoor space. More details on the Visit Marshall website. So if you're interested in getting a team together, I believe you actually have to call the gym to reserve your table. We all know that by now. You have to call ahead of time to reserve the table. So give the gym a call and reserve your reservation. Mike, have you done any Traveling Trivia?
I have not. Yeah. I should really try that out.
Well, it's not like you don't have anything else to do. But so we've had about 140 on a monthly basis. So it's a really fun event.
What kind of questions do they ask? Is it just general trivia? Or?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It might be a theme one month, but yeah, it's just general trivia.
All right. Very good.
June 8th through the 20th, SMSU, right here on campus, our women's SMSU basketball team is holding a virtual 5K event. And this is something that Coach Webb did last year. So he was doing virtual things before virtual became a thing. So if you're interested in it, you have 13 days to do a 5K. So you can walk it, you can run it, you can do it on your bike trail. We have an amazing bike trail system here in the region. You can do it on wherever you'd like to do it. But you're helping out a really solid program here on campus if you wanted to do it. Similarly, June 19th, the David Drown SMSU Athletics Golf Tournament is being scheduled. This is a 5-person team event. More details on the SMSU Athletics website. Mike, are you a golfer?
I am a very poor golfer. I've swung the clubs in I don't think they call it the Maha Open, but the Hockey Open. But I hack away at it.
Yeah,
so,
I hear you. Yeah. I'm right there with you. Yeah. So it's a 5-person team that you can sign up with for the Athletics Golf Tournament. A few more things. Marshall Golf Course is having a member tournament. So many years they've had a member guest tournament where you bring in a friend from out of town or a non-member regardless. And it's usually in August, but this is going to be on June 26th and June 27th. So if you're interested in the member tournament, you're doing good things by going to the golf course and helping out the golf course, that's for sure. The Chamber is holding 3 events in June. And not all of them are virtual. They are actually having a cleanup day. The young professionals are over by Pizza Ranch, so if you're interested in doing that. Otherwise, the Women's Connect is on. We're having a Let's Connect event. The Let's Connect is a really cool event where you get to talk about your business for up to a minute in front of 35 to 40 others. We are doing it on Zoom. Hopefully, it'll be our last one on Zoom. But who doesn't want to talk about their business in front of other people? And, it's just a good way to get more clients for yourself. So a few other things I want to touch on before we close out today, and I kind of touched on it already, is restaurants. Obviously, this week they started curbside. I'm sorry. They've been doing curbside. They're actually doing outdoor seating, and some of them are really having to do some extra things. I was in the parking lot behind Mariachi's and the Gambler, that city lot, and Mariachi's actually has some tables and chairs out in the city lot. So thank you to the city council for actually lining that up last week and voting on that to get some, and then the city maintenance staff for getting the tables out there. So all good things there. Again, we're working together on that. Time to get your hair cut. I'm going tonight, and I can't wait to get mine done. I haven't had mine done since like March 1st. So get out there, support our salons, get your hair cut. They're opening too. Our retailers have been open now for about 2 weeks. They've been busy, but they'll never turn you away for being too busy. So go to those shops downtown, across all the furniture stores, all the way down East College Drive, West College Drive, up and down Highway 23. That but one way or another, just continue to shop local, because these are again, I repeat it every month, but it's worth saying, these are the same businesses that you see on a hockey jersey and on a baseball jersey, a basketball jersey. They're out supporting you as sponsors. They're there giving stuff for your kids' silent auction, your school silent auction, or whatever the case is. So right now and always is going to be a good time to be supporting local. Not just shop local, but live local. So anyway, that's all I have. So all these updates can be found on our chamber website, which is marshallmn.org. Our visit website is visitmarshallmn.com. Next month, I have Bruce Remy, who is the Marshall Tigers athletic director, to be coming in to talk about this past year. What a strange end of the year for Marshall Public Schools athletics. Well, not just Marshall Public Schools, but across the state and across the nation.
Yeah.
So he's going to kind of give us a recap. Of course, one of the last things that we saw was the Marshall Tigers basketball team beating Mankato East in St. Peter, and then after that, it was pretty much just shut down. So we'll talk to Bruce, get a recap, and kind of get what to expect in this upcoming year. Mike, I know you're a big hockey family.
Yeah,
right?
We are for sure. Looking forward to the Red Baron getting opened back up.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. This is obviously time we should be talking about expos and the vendor show that should have happened a few weeks ago. So we're looking forward to getting that open. We're excited to hear more announcements from the governor. Hopefully we hear more things that are going to open very soon. So with that, thanks for watching. Mike, thanks for being my guest. I sure do appreciate you being here. And thanks for all that you do for the community.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yep, and we'll see you in July.